Aeronautical knowledge. One of the key components of the FAA Part 107 exam is aeronautical knowledge. This section covers the various rules and regulations that drone pilots must follow, as well as the basic principles of flight and navigation. In this chapter, we will examine the following topics in depth: airspace classification and requirements, aviation weather sources and weather hazards, loading and performance, emergency procedures, crew resource management, radio communication procedures, determining the performance of your drone. Airspace classification and requirements. The FAA divides airspace into several different classes, each with its own set of rules and requirements. It is important for drone pilots to understand these classifications, as well as the requirements for operating in each type of airspace. The main types of airspace include Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D, Class E, and Class G. Class A airspace is located above 18,000 feet, and is reserved for commercial air traffic. Drone pilots are not permitted to operate in this type of airspace. Class B airspace is located around the busiest airports, and is designed to provide additional protection for aircraft and passengers. Drone pilots are not permitted to operate in this type of airspace without obtaining a waiver from the FAA. Class C airspace is located around medium-sized airports, and provides a higher level of protection for aircraft and passengers. Drone pilots must obtain clearance from air traffic control before operating in this type of airspace. Class D airspace is located around smaller airports, and provides a basic level of protection for aircraft and passengers. Drone pilots are permitted to operate in this type of airspace, but must follow the rules and requirements set by the FAA. Class E airspace is located above the majority of the country, and is the least regulated type of airspace. Drone pilots are permitted to operate in this type of airspace, but must follow the rules and requirements set by the FAA. Class G airspace is located below 1,200 feet, and is the most unregulated type of airspace. Drone pilots are permitted to operate in this type of airspace, but must follow the rules and requirements set by the FAA. Aviation weather sources and weather hazards. Aviation weather sources, such as weather radars and surface observation stations, provide important information about current and future weather conditions. It is important for drone pilots to understand the different types of weather hazards that can impact flight, such as thunderstorms, turbulence, and icing. Loading and performance. The weight and balance of a drone is an important factor in determining its performance and stability. Drone pilots must understand the principles of weight and balance, as well as how to calculate the weight and balance of their drone. They must also understand how to load their drone for flight, and how to determine the performance of their drone. Emergency procedures. In the event of an emergency, it is important for drone pilots to have a solid understanding of emergency procedures. This includes understanding how to handle a variety of different emergencies, such as loss of power, loss of communication, and system failures. Crew resource management. Crew resource management, CRM, refers to the management of resources, including personnel and equipment, during flight. Drone pilots must understand the principles of CRM, as well as how to communicate effectively with their crew and other stakeholders. Radio communication procedures. Radio communication is an important part of flight operations, and drone pilots must understand the procedures for communicating with air traffic control and other stakeholders. This includes understanding the different types of radios and frequencies used in aviation, as well as the procedures for making and receiving radio calls. It is important to note that in the United States, the Federal Communications Commission, FCC, regulates the use of radio frequencies, and drone pilots must adhere to these regulations. The FCC requires that drone pilots use a device that is certified for use on the frequencies assigned for aviation. When communicating with air traffic control, it is important to use standard phraseology and procedures. This includes identifying the aircraft, stating the altitude and position, and relaying any necessary information. It is also important to listen carefully to any instructions or advice from air traffic control. In addition to communication with air traffic control, drone pilots must also be able to communicate effectively with other stakeholders, such as ground personnel or other aircraft in the vicinity. This includes using standard procedures for calling out aircraft positions and any potential hazards. In summary, effective radio communication is a critical aspect of safe drone operations, and drone pilots must be well versed in the procedures and protocols for communicating with air traffic control and other stakeholders. Determining the performance of your drone. In order to safely and effectively operate a drone, it is important to understand the performance capabilities of the aircraft. This includes factors such as maximum weight, speed, and altitude, as well as the impact of environmental factors such as wind and temperature. One key aspect of determining the performance of a drone is understanding weight and balance. The weight of the drone must be within the manufacturer's recommended limits, and the center of gravity must be within the specified range. This information is typically provided in the drone's manual or specifications. Another important factor to consider is the performance of the drone's batteries. The battery life and performance can be impacted by factors such as temperature and altitude, and it is important to monitor battery levels and take appropriate action to ensure safe flight. Finally, it is important to consider the impact of environmental factors on the performance of the drone. For example, wind can impact the stability of the drone, and high temperatures can affect the performance of the batteries. In conclusion, understanding the performance capabilities of your drone is a critical aspect of safe drone operations. Drone pilots must be familiar with the weight and balance requirements, battery performance, and the impact of environmental factors, in order to safely and effectively operate the aircraft.